Yeah, much
Better?
better. Yes.
All right, cool.
Okay.
I got headphones, so
Yeah,
that might be working to our advantage.
works. So you think business for any reason?
Sorry, give me 1 second. Now I can't hear you. This is a mess. All right, now go ahead.
So you think a business should be able to deny service to anyone for any reason?
Correct.
Why?
Sam, that I personally am not extremely religious person, but are you from America?
Yes. I mean, you just said you're not religious. I see a cross over your door in the background there.
I'm in my grandparents' house for July.
Oh, okay. All right.
My grandfather's house. Yeah, that's not mine.
Okay. All right.
But
Okay.
I believe based on the freedom of expression, obviously speech. I don't think I have to go over that with you. Um, I believe the government has no business in regulating morality as long as it doesn't hinder upon another person's rights. And when it comes to private businesses, I know a lot of people say if you have to you're like people are entitled to your service. I believe when it comes to a private business, that others are not entitled to that service. Obviously, if it's a government like mandated thing, or if it's a public something in the having to do with like public government sector, of course. But as far as private businesses go, there's no sense in trying to legislate morality and force it upon someone else.
Okay, but by your logic, that means if I owned a business, I could refuse service to all women or all black people just because they're black or women.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's the best way to run your business personally, but like I said, I don't have any say in what you can or cannot do with your business.
You think that's okay?
It's not that I think it's okay, like personally, it's just that I also don't think it's okay for me to elitistly say I know better than you and that I can impose my own beliefs on you first. So like for because a lot of this dialogue started when there was a Christian man who refused to bake a cake, right, for a homosexual couple.
Right.
Um, well, something that's like also come up though is that would you tell a Jewish baker to make a Nazi cake for someone's Nazi party or for the KKK? Would you ask a black man to serve a KKK member? Say a KKK member came in with his hood and with his, whatever it is it's called that they wear, and he came into, say, a laundromat.
Right.
You would say that black man cannot refuse him the right of service just because they have a conflict
Right.
of ideology.
Yeah, I think you either have to be 100% or 0%. You can't float in the middle and have some yeses and some nos. We either have free speech or
Mm-hmm.
we don't. We either have
Mm-hmm.
or we don't, and we don't. So,
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair that we pick and choose which things are okay to deny service people for and which things aren't. And I mean, I think to me it's ridiculous. If you have a brain in your head and you're a business owner, you take anybody's business because that's why
Exactly.
you're there.
Yeah, I would call it bad business if you decided to obviously extradite and like completely get rid of, like, you refuse service to black people or women, like you were saying. I think that's very bad business. In all honesty, I think especially the way the public is now, especially social media, that would get out really quickly. And I'm sure those who stood with them would, on a social level, get together and rally up and go against that business socially, but not in a way where they're going to legislate and force anything upon them.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I can see that. I just think it's I don't know, when you use the words anyone for any reason, I think that's a little silly. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's too broad. I mean, are we talking like, can we deny service to people because they're cancer patients? I mean,
Um,
to me, that's some things should not be allowed regardless of
mhm.
what anybody thinks is freedom. It's just silly and it's wrong,
No, I understand that.
you know?
I understand. healthcare is very different because much of healthcare is supported and mandated and like by the government and such like that. So that's a very, very different issue. I would agree with you that there needs to be some sort of compromise or some middle ground somewhere. Because the more I'm more pertaining to private businesses, while healthcare seems to be a more public need and it's more of a public thing. So
not even saying no. When I said cancer, I didn't mean as if somebody has cancer and a doctor is refusing them service. I'm saying a bakery is refusing people with cancer service.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'm telling you right now. I know it sounds completely ridiculous. There's people in this country that have crazy stuff like that going on. They're just dumb.
Yeah.
People like that shouldn't be in control of their own destiny. They're too stupid to be allowed. You know what I'm saying?
One who's against cancer patients would even have the mentality or the knowledge or the wisdom to even start a business and be successful. But if they did, and if it came to that, like I said, I would definitely stand up and fight it on a social level, but I would never force any sort of legislation upon them or anything like that. It's kind of it's there's certain aspects to it that it's like a necessary evil that if we want to have true free expression and free speech and such like that, there are certain things that there are going to be repercussions, you know, and there are going to be certain things that we have to deal with. And there's things that we can deal with them socially and we can deal with them on a societal level, but there's certain things that the government just can't impose upon others without overstepping their grounds of checks and balances and such.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I just see it like, I think most of the stuff works itself out, and that's why I always get upset when people try to get on the side of the businesses that are refusing service, because it's silly, really. I mean, it's kind of like a ridiculous. It's almost like children bickering. You know, it's like, come on, we really like, all right, come on. Why would you want to go to this person anyway? Then at that point,
exactly. Yeah, that's my point. Is that yeah?
But you know, for certain things, I don't think it should be allowed that they could just refuse them just because they decide that they don't like them for a ridiculous reason.
Yeah, I understand that, and like I was saying, definitely I would up and fight that on a societal level. I mean, if you take anything to the publicity, if you take anything to news or magazine or anything like that, it gets out like that, and their business, they'll go out of business naturally just based on, because the way business is, you know, if you want to do well, you need to cater to the whoever's surrounding you, especially if you're a private business. Say you're a private business, you know, you're only in one town, it's like an old mom and pop type business, you know, and one owner, you know, there's not a franchise or anything. The best way to fight that, or like, so to do well in your business, you're going to have to cater to whoever's around you. So if you're trying to set up, for instance, you know, if you're trying to set up a Jewish bakery in a town that's like, how's the best way to explain this? If you're setting up a Jewish bakery in a town where there's, say, San Francisco, I'm not trying not to make the generalization that there's a lot of homosexual, it's all homosexuals are in San Francisco, but that is a very liberal town, correct?
Yeah.
So if you're setting up, say you set up like a very strict Orthodox Jewish or even Christianity, a Christian bakery down there, you're not going to do well with your business once they find out that you don't want to serve homosexuals for their wedding catering or anything like that.
You're
and
right,
I think it's, yeah.
At what point do these, how, you know, in what way, and I know the answer to the question, but I have to ask it anyway. How is that in any way related to what their business is all about? Whether they're Christian or Jewish or, you know, they believe in ghosts. I mean, it's meaningless to the business. And the people who are wrapped up in all this stuff are just, I think it's more, they're being sucked into this division which everybody loves these days. And I just think it's silly. It's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with anything. If I go into a deli, I'm going to go in, and I don't care if the people behind there practice everything that I hate. If they make a good sandwich, I'm going to keep going there. I could care less. It's the same argument I have with people when I don't know if you're a sports fan, if you're into professional sports at all, but a lot of people,
yeah.
a lot of people get upset with the NFL players that have all these issues off the field. They're doing all this crazy stuff. And they get mad. They say, I don't want that guy on my team. He did this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
I could care less. I don't care what they do. All I want from them is to play well for my team. I'm not interested in go off the field because that's not my responsibility to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Same goes for the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you do. Just if you do the job that I'm paying you to do well, then continue doing the job, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I see what you're saying there. Yeah. If I were to run a business or anything like that, I definitely stand with you where it's silly. It's silly to me too. I would never run my business that way because I believe. I mean, I live in SoCal, very very liberal state, especially liberal population down here by LA, and I would never run a business built off of any sort of discrimination. But the issue is you are freely allowed to discriminate, and that it sucks, but like I was saying, it's necessary because, as you said before, you have to be 100% or 0% on this matter. You know, it's not something where there's exceptions to freedom of speech. Otherwise, like I said, you're legislating morality and imposing something that isn't constitutional.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess we basically agree on this one, then, more or less.
Like I said, we agree on on a personal level. I agree, it's very silly. And like I said, you know, a business that lives in like I said, Orthodox Jewish, or someone who's going to be against homosexual marriages, and like if you say you're running like a party planning or a wedding planning business, and or it could be like the bakery, like I said, but especially if even more extreme example would be a wedding planning business and you're an Orthodox Jew in San Francisco or something like that. Your business is not going to do very well when you have homosexual couples coming to you and saying,
Right.
I want to get married. But I'm not going to say, because it's silly to me and it might be silly to you, but to them it's not silly. And
right.
I feel I should respect that.
That's where we break, because to me, anyone who's living in that frame of mind, those people don't deserve the same respect that you or I do, because they're not able to separate what's really important and what's only important in their simple minds. And to me, that's a major problem I have. If you can't do that and you have to pick at every petty issue, then you have a major problem, and you're not you're not a normal, upstanding person. So to me, you don't deserve that type of credit. You don't
I see what you mean. And like I said, you know, keep saying, like, I agree with you on a personal level and such like that. But it's just that when it's out there and you're talking about government legislation and such like that, I would not legislate against their own personal beliefs.
Believe in legislation either. I mean, I'm not one for the government fixing problems because they don't fix them. But what I'm for is people just having common sense and just looking at somebody who does such a thing and saying, listen, you can't do it. We're not going to let you do it, and just sink the business the old-fashioned way. The problem is a lot of these people have more people on their side than against them. And that's, to me, that's the biggest issue, is that we have people who fight for them as if being oppressed. Where in reality, it's the opposite way around.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of there's going to be a lot of things. I agree with you. It depends on where you live. For me in California, it's like I said, you know, it's extremely low. Like the general population, not many people are willing to stand up for the minorities who are being suppressed or being discriminated against. Yeah, that's definitely an issue. But you know, it kind of reminds me. It's really interesting. It kind of reminds me of kind of during the Civil War era and Abraham Lincoln. It was very interesting. You know, some think he was like this very extreme abolitionist, but he was extremely constitutional and he stuck to Jacksonian democracy extremely. And after slaves were freed, actually still the majority of the population didn't want to live in the same communities as African Americans, and it's disgusting. And he recognized that, but he had to, in that moment, compromise, because he realized that the public wasn't ready to change completely. Because I mean, it's disgusting that slavery lasted as long as it did, but that was in perspective to the closed-minded people of that era, that was a very new thing to them.
Right.
And then to be told that African Americans now they didn't, first of all, they didn't give them the right to vote right away. They just give them freedom, and then they didn't want them living in the same communities, and that's actually when segregation came out. And obviously 100 years later, that was completely gotten rid of. Thank God, thank us, whoever did it. But Abraham Lincoln was willing to see that it was necessary for him to do this, and it was necessary for him to allow segregation in hopes of a future change. Like, for instance, well, let me trail back a little bit. He was, when he was a lawyer, he said, I'm very against slavery and such like that. But at the same time, when there were abolitionists trying to suppress, the South and the Confederacy, when they were trying to suppress them, and there were certain people trying to get them out of newspapers so that they wouldn't succeed, trying to do that and that. Now, he didn't want a succession. That was the one thing he never wanted. But he actually fought against the abolitionists who were trying to suppress their speech in a public forum and such like that, because they would try to rally up.
Right. He tried to keep it even. Even though he disagreed with them, he didn't want them to feel as if they weren't on the level with everybody else.
Exactly.
Right. Which makes
exactly.
sense, but it's still, it's still wrong.
No, I agree with you. It is very wrong.
And
but
the bigger issue I see is that the groups of people that we split up and pair off and basically pick sides. And that seems to be something that's just ingrained in us by government in a way. They want you to be divided.
Right now in America, it's an extremely divided, especially there's an extremely divided nation right now, especially with everything going on in the election, Trump, Clinton, all that stuff. Trump, I personally don't support him. If others do, I respect you if you agree with his policies and such like that. But, people are right when he's saying he's bringing out the anger in certain voters. And we're starting to see, we like to say that we've come such a long way since the, Civil War era in 19th century. We've come a long way since the Civil Rights era in the 1960s. But it's very scary now in this election, seeing everyone that's coming out actually supporting Trump and supporting some of his.
I really believe that we haven't come as far as we think. We just like to hide our real feeling.
Yeah.
Most people just hide your real feeling.
Yeah.
And most people just aren't honest until they're with a group of people that agrees with them, and then they get honest. But in public, really are, because everybody's afraid of their own shadow these days. But well, all right. I think I see your point. We more or less agree on mostly of what it is. So all right.
It's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a process trying to these are values that I hold like dear to myself, obviously, and so I hope one day they can be universal values. I hope people can see, because you and I agree ethically and morally that it's silly, to do that, and it's also bad business. I hope one day these can be held as universal values. But we can't as I've been saying, I can't force my own values and say immediately that they're universal. I need it, because you can tell someone to do something, but it's much easier to convince someone that you and them are in the right state of mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I just think the issue is that people are so brainwashed, so dead set on their way of thinking, that it's kind of hard to ever break out of that. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe one day people will snap out of it, but I doubt it.
It's going to be a process. I don't know how long it's going to be. You know, it could be the next decade, it could be the next century, it could be the next millennia. For all I know, you know, this whole thing could outlive both of us. But I fight it as much as I can. I want freedom of speech and expression to fight it as much as I can. But you know, I think it's better to keep a dialogue, better to keep an argument than force something on another person. Because, like I said, if you force something upon another person, that's what happens. Like civil war. Abraham Lincoln was never forcing upon anyone, but the South and the Confederacy, they felt they were being forced, and that's what made them feel they needed to secede, because their states' rights were being, you know, were being hindered upon.
No, I don't believe that. That's not why they wanted to secede.
Well, no, the Confederacy was
Because
it was good. They wanted slavery, but they founded on the foundation of states' rights, that it needed to be up to the states.
That's what they disguised their greed and money grubbing as, but that's not.
Really. Yeah. No, I see what you mean. There's
said you could have all your states' rights except slavery. You can bank that they still would have had a secession, because that's really all they cared about.
Yeah, no, there was definitely an ulterior motive there. Absolutely. Like, obviously, I think that's very obvious. Like, I agree with you. There's definitely an ulterior motive there, but they were, you know, that's the foundation that they were set upon, was states' rights.
Yeah, which we all know the states have no real rights. I mean, they have.
Yeah, it seems so.
They only
unfortunately
have go along with the federal government, and then if they don't, those rights don't count. So, you know.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Well, have a good one, man. Good talk.
You have a good 4th of July. Everything like that. Yeah. All right.
Later.
Have a good one. Later.